Soyero, and I'm going to be showing you how to tie a peacock bass and largemouth clouser variation. Let's get started. I like to use a big game mustad size 4 hook. Seems to work well for the size of peacocks and largemouth we got in our area. And I also like to use a red thread. Just gives an extra effect to the bait fish pattern. Let's get started. Start from the eye of the hook and wrap your thread all the way back to the bend. You want the wraps nice and even, not clumpy, just to make a better presentation for the fly. And you're going to go to the bend, and then you're going to end your thread right at the hook point. Cut your excess thread off, bind in the tag. Now the next step is to get some chartreuse rubber legs. I like to use a chartreuse just because it's going to be a green and red color pattern clouser. So you want about 5 to 6 strands, so you have a clump like that. And then you're going to bend that in half, so that way it looks like a nice little clump like that. You're going to tie that clump of rubber legs into the back. You're going to cut the excess off. Then you secure that bind. Alright, and then the next step is I like to bring the thread to about a ½ centimeter before the eye of the hook. And that's when I'm going to put in my red dumbbell eyes. They're lead, so it sinks nice. I don't like to use the metal or anything like that. The lead just works fine. So you want to tie those eyes in nice and secure. To where they won't wiggle too much. You can put a little dollop of zap glue underneath if you want to secure the eyes, but they tend to seem pretty secure. Now you want to bring the thread back to where you put those rubber legs in, and then you're going to put in the next product, and that is, I like to use an olive chenille. I like to use the olive color just because it has the colors of the fish we got in our ponds and our lakes around here. So you want to tie that in. Then you want to bring your thread to the back of the lead eyes, just behind it. Then you're going to start wrapping your chenille. But every time you wrap your chenille, you want to be pulling back the fibers, so that way you have a nice clean look and it won't end up all choppy. So you want to wrap until you get right behind the lead eyes. I like to use a generous piece of chenille, so that way you got something to grab on. You don't want to run out of material and have to use your fingertips to keep hold of your product. And you want to secure that chenille right behind the eyes. Cut the excess off. And now it's starting to look like a fly. Next step is you're going to bring that thread right in front of those lead eyes. And the next step is you're going to flip the vise over. I like to use a rotary vise, so that way you can flip it over pretty easily. I use a Renzetti. Just seems to be the one that works well for me. I've had it for a long time. Now the next step is you're going to get some chartreuse craft fur. I like to use craft fur over deer hair because it's got really good motion in the water, it sits back well, and it plumes out well. It's got good motion. And with the craft fur, I don't like to use a very thick clump, nor do I like to use a very thin clump. I like to use something in between, so that way it's not too thick up in the front of the hook, and it still has that motion. You don't need a whole lot to make motion with the craft fur. So, I'll wet it so you can see. When it's wet, line up like that. You want to pick all the fuzz out of the end where you cut, because craft fur has some short fibers. And if you're done with that, you're going to trim it nice and even. And then you're going to tie in that craft fur right here in front of the lead eyes. I like to use my thumb as a guide, kind of pinch the thread so that way it'll sit well and it won't go over the eye of the hook, which is crucial because you don't want any clumpage up there, so that way the your leader and your line will go into the eye perfectly. If you lose a few fibers, no big deal. It's actually kind of nice. It'll thin it out so that way it's not too thick. We'll pick out the fibers that are too short and straggly. Alright, next step is you're going to be getting some, I like to use green polar fiber. I use about 5 to 7 strands of polar fiber. And you want to cut that to length of the craft fur. I tend to use about maybe 1.5 to 2-inch piece of craft fur because you don't want it hanging out too long. You want to keep a compact baitfish pattern. Then you're going to tie in that polar fiber right in the front, right where you put that craft fur. Now the next step is you're going to whip finish. Let's go about 2 times. Make sure the wrap is secure. And you're going to cut your thread. I like to use a Loon Outdoors product in the flow. And this just works out really well. Keeps the thread nice and smooth. Keeps it nice and hard in the front. The bind doesn't come out, and it soaks into the thread, so it really makes it stick. So I like to put a little dollop of that there, move it around with the tip of your bottle, and then over the eyes and into the nose, and then get yourself a UV light so that way you can harden the UV flow product. Now, I grab the craft fur, and I like to poke the hook right in between them, so that way it makes it nice and even. And kind of separate the polar fiber, so that way it'll look like a bait fish. And that's how you tie the peacock bass and largemouth clouser pattern. Thank you.